afternoon. Happy Veterans Day, everyone, and my heartfelt thanks to all those who have served. My name is Mike Rhodes, and I am the New York Assurance Practice Leader at Citrin Cooperman. I wanted to welcome you all to our inaugural event of our CEO Evolution series, featuring my client, Gary Vaynerchuk, a serial entrepreneur, investor, best-selling author, chairman of VaynerX, and CEO of VaynerMedia. Citrin Cooperman is one of the nation's largest professional service firms, providing accounting, tax, and business advisory services to clients in a broad range of industries and geographic markets. Headquartered here in New York City, our firm has over 200 partners and over 1,500 employees across the US dedicated to high-quality client service. Our daily mission is to enhance the businesses and personal lives of our clients through our services, guidance, and enthusiasm of building long-standing relationships. We are dedicated to providing clients with an objective viewpoint and insightful advice on whatever opportunities or challenges they bring to the table. Finding innovative solutions is what drives our professionals and helps our clients succeed. The CEO Evolution series is an annual seminar series that takes place in several regions where Citrin Cooperman has offices. The CEO Evolution series aims to identify and recognize those CEOs and leaders who have risen to the top and evolved as industry leaders. This annual event brings together some of the most notable and most dynamic CEOs to share their experiences, strategies, and best practices to help others gain insight into becoming successful leaders. So enough about me, my firm, and the general focus of CEO Evolution series. On to Gary V. You're actually probably wondering why I'm speaking to you alone right now. Well, unfortunately, Gary has been briefly detained while he kicks off another event, but he's going to be joining us in the next few minutes. But while we're waiting, if by any chance you are not familiar with Gary, let me tell you a little about him. Gary Vaynerchuk is a serial entrepreneur and serves as the chairman of VaynerX and the CEO of VaynerMedia. He's considered one of the leading global minds on what's next in culture, relevance, and the internet. Known as Gary V, he is described as one of the most forward thinkers in business. He acutely recognizes trends and patterns early to help others understand how these shifts impact markets and consumer behavior. Whether it's emerging artists, esports, NFT investing, or digital communications, Gary understands how to bring brand relevance to the forefront. He is a prolific angel investor with early investments in companies that some of you may have heard of, such as Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Venmo, Snapchat, Coinbase, and Uber. Gary is an entrepreneur at heart, and he builds businesses. Today, he helps Fortune 1000 brands leverage consumer attention through its full-service advertising agency, VaynerMedia, which has offices in New York, LA, London, and Singapore. VaynerMedia is part of VaynerX holding company, which also includes Vayner Productions, Gallery Media Group, the Sasha Group, Tracer, Vayner Speakers, Vayner Talent, and Vayner Commerce. Gary is also the co-founder of Vayner Sports, Resi, and Empathy Wines. And Gary guided both Resi and Empathy Wines to successful exits. Both were sold respectively to American Express and Constellation Brands. In addition to running multiple businesses, Gary documents his life daily as a CEO through his social media channels, which has more than 30 million followers across all platforms. His podcast, The Gary V Audio Experience, ranks among the top podcasts globally. He is a 5-time New York Times best-selling author and one of the most highly sought-after public speakers. But if that's not enough, Gary serves on the board of Micmac, Bojangles Restaurants, and Pencils of Promise, and he is also a longtime member of Charity Water. Whew, what a background. So I, along with an accomplished team of professionals at Citrin Cooperman, have been working with Gary and his team at VaynerX for the last several years. And it's been truly a privilege to work with such a dynamic, creative organization. It's been exciting to provide advice to the company that continues to experience explosive growth the way Vayner has. As I mentioned, Gary is a best-selling author, and he will be releasing his 6th book, 12 and a Half, on November 30th. Which explores the 12 essential emotional skills that are integral to his life and business success, and provides today's as well as tomorrow's leaders with critical tools to acquire and develop these traits. For decades, leaders have relied on hard skills to make smart decisions while dismissing the importance of emotional intelligence. Soft skills like self-awareness and curiosity aren't quite quantifiable. They can't be measured on a spreadsheet and aren't taught in business schools or emphasized in institutions. We've been taught that emotional intelligence is a nice to have in business, not a requirement. But Gary believes that soft skills can actually accelerate business success. For analytical minds, it's challenging to understand how to get better at being self-aware or curious or empathetic, or even why it's important to try. In this wise and practical book, Gary explores the 12 human ingredients that have led to his success and happiness and provides exercises to help you develop these traits yourself. He also shares what the half is, that emotional ingredient of leadership he's weakest at and makes the most effort to improve. Working through the ideas and exercises in the book, he teaches you how to discover your own halves and offer insight on how to strengthen them. So now I understand Gary will be joining us momentarily, but before he does, I thought we should share a quick glimpse into who he is and what he's all about. So Stephen, do you want to run the video?
All right, here we go. Curiosity, a strong desire to know or learn something. Curiosity is incredibly practical, is how I see it in my mind these days. Everyone's always asking me about how I hit things early, why I see around corners. Like, I'm curious, grounded in humility. Just because I did well in this or that doesn't mean I'm going to be great today or tomorrow. Curiosity and humility are massive, and so many of you need to add those two elements to your game. It's how you find early and win. I wonder how big a business I can actually build. I wonder how many people I can have an impact on. I wonder how many will show up to my funeral one day. You need to have a strong desire to continue learning, no matter how much you've accomplished. I listen and then I talk a lot. People are like, he's always talking, interrupting. I'm like, I'm listening. You guys know, it's all listening. In my mind, I'm still young. I'm still just getting started. I'm still in the dirt. If you have an inflated ego, curiosity gets suppressed. When you don't know, and you don't know what the rules are, and you don't know how it's supposed to be done, you start innovating and creating. If you don't know, and you're curious, and you're creative, you can really do some damage, and I think that's why I've been able to continue to do unique things. I use blind eyes a lot, and I protect my blind eyes, and I think that means that I protect my curiosity and really, really drive from that place. I would tell you that I don't think I realized how big of a deal curiosity is in my success. Curiosity is the element to unlock what you're asking. The word curiosity is underrated in our society. It feels fluffy, academic, and childish, but I believe it's one of the most important characteristics for success. Are you actually pushing yourself? Are you actually learning? Are you taking advantage of the power of curiosity? Are you letting fear and lack of optimism control you? Or are you going all in on the things you're actually curious about to create your next chapter? Today was a good day. A day I'll never forget. Curiosity leads you to places you don't expect to end up. Good places.
Hopefully you enjoyed that little glimpse into who Gary is. We're expecting him to join any minute at this point. One thing that I can, again, share with you that I would have probably mentioned once Gary was on is Gary likes questions and Gary likes to go off the cuff. So if anyone does have questions, you can post them in the it's not the chat.
Q&A.
Thank you, Stephen, in the Q&A. So we'll try to get to those questions depending on how much time we have. So if you had any questions for Gary, that's something that you could think about writing right now. Also, some of the things that I can talk to you about Gary, in this book that he's written is, when he talks about the 12 qualities of leadership in emotional intelligence, he's really talking about, he goes through different things like gratitude and tenacity and obviously curiosity, optimism, and accountability and self-awareness, things like that come to mind for me, that he discusses in the book. And, for me personally, I've observed Gary, for the last several years, and he really brings all of those things to the table every day. So he's really living by the rules that the ways he's establishing in this book. So again, I hope people will take a look at the book. It gets released on November 30th. There's Gary. Hi, Gary. How you doing?
I'm well, brother. How are you?
I'm good. You were having me sweat this out for a couple extra minutes.
Sorry about that. I had a little bit of a tech issue.
No problem. No problem. I really appreciate you joining us. Just to give you a background of what we've been doing. So I told everyone you were running late. I shared a brief bio of you. I mentioned your book, 12 and a half, will be released on November 30th. So I know you're just getting organized, but are you ready to get into things?
Oh, I'm ready. I'm super ready. Let's rock and roll.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. So obviously you're the CEO of a global media company, and it's continuing to experience explosive growth. Well, you've done an amazing job of building a phenomenal team and leading with a high degree of emotional intelligence. You're still the CEO, right?
Yeah.
As the CEO, as we all know, it can be lonely at the top.
Yes.
And you still have to make tough decisions and do things that no one likes to do. How do you balance being the type of leader you want to be with driving the business forward to continued success?
Many things. I think first is gratitude. I really mean it. I think people are wildly misusing it. Mike, when I wake up, this is actually very real. I woke up this morning, brushing my teeth, and said, thank you, God, for another night where nobody called me and said somebody that I love died. It's as extreme as that. Understanding that I'm grateful for even the at-bat to be a CEO. Like, it is lonely. It is high pressure. Even the reason I'm 2 minutes late, I just got off a live thing at 12:10 and I was supposed to be here, but in that 180 seconds, I had 2 texts that were like fire, fire, fire. And I had to think about that. Think about it.
Yeah.
Your question just got answered from 2 seconds ago.
Right.
So, but I'm so grateful. I'm sitting on top of a massively growing business where, yes, it's a fire, and yes, I'm concerned about it. But in real life, does it matter? A true perspective of gratitude is number one. Number two, and this is a big one, I don't negatively judge others, which means, and best of all, it's because I don't negatively judge myself.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to lose a lot. This ideological point of view of being perfect or right, or, I'm self-confident enough to deal with the ridicule or the disdain or the second guessing of the decisions I make, because life's about alternatives, and I'm incredibly comfortable in my skin. And if I make bad decisions, we will feel the ramifications of this. And if I don't, then I won't. It's not super complicated. And you've got a little bit of an insight more than most. Like, I'm a unique entrepreneur. Like, I run my businesses differently. I'm different. Right. I run them differently. I'm empathetic to what my CFO Alan thinks, to what you think, to what Ted thinks. But what I remind, let's say, people that are a little bit more black and white than my gray as an entrepreneur and a leader, is I remind them that, like, look, I've had to make payroll for 24 years straight right now. May 1998, 23 and a half years. From the May 1998, I walked into my dad's liquor store and I had to make payroll every 2 weeks up until this point of my life.
Right.
So yes, you might think I'm being crazy, high risk. I'm not maximizing my profit. I'm not doing a lot of things, but I know what I'm doing. And by the way, and here's the big one, it's humility. And if I don't, well, then that's just the way it is. Like, it's like losing a fight, like Muhammad Ali lost to Joe Frazier. It happened. Well, you could still be the greatest and you could still lose. And so
and I think that goes to accountability too, which is
100%. I'm incredibly accountable. If you made a mistake, well, I hired you. I could have hired anybody.
Yep.
So I'm incredible. And by the way, the accountability leads to happiness. I love being in control. It's when you don't have accountability that you think other people are in control. You're going to blame your parents, the government, the company, society, a sixth grader that beat you up, that made you scared. You get into a lot of those things. And like, look, that doesn't mean bad things don't happen, but it means, do you want the happiness of accountability?
Right.
So accountability, lack of judgment, gratitude, patience. I use sports a lot. I've already did it with Ali. The Jets were down 30-7 on the Monday Night Miracle. I was there. We were down 30-7. There was 10 minutes left. We won. And, I think patience also helps me quite a bit. Like, this quarter's not going to be good. This year's not going to be good. This half decade's not going to be good. All okay when you're playing the long game.
Right. Well, you mentioned something back and you talked about that you're truly an entrepreneur, and I couldn't agree with you more, but you are a different type of business leader. What I have seen at your organization is that you have a ton of dynamic, very smart people that you work with. How do you think you kind of maintain this kind of momentum of going forward, focused on the same thing, without creating chaos with all those big ideas around?
Well, let me ask you this, because we want to bring the CEOs the most value here, right?
Yeah.
I think it might be interesting, and you're close, but you're not there every day. But like, what's your hot take? This could be a little fun. Let's flip it. What's your intuition or your observation to that question? What do you think?
Well, I think that what you're clear about is where the long game is, to be honest. I think that you make it clear where you're headed or where you see the vision of you're a visionary. We all know that, but you're a visionary when it comes to your own business. So while you might have to focus on the 2 texts that come in today, within 120 seconds of coming on, you still are keeping everyone mindful of where the long game is, where you're trying to go in the business. And I think that all the big ideas that you come up with when you're brushing your teeth or when you're in, all
Wherever.
has to fit into some component of the overall. How close did I get?
Really close. I think, this. I like to run years with very little profit because I'm building this forever. Poor Alan, when he comes from the outside, is like, what the hell is this, as the CFO, right? But once he actually believed me 2 years in, 3 years in, that I'm playing forever, all of a sudden, a lot of that pressure of what he would normally be ridiculed for, fired for, dinged on, right? I mean, you're seeing it. So I think it's like good parenting. Either parents focus on the things that don't matter, go to Harvard, or be the best at lacrosse, or things that just genuinely don't matter, or they focus on be a good human being, be accountable. There's a balance between I love you, but I'm not going to over coddle you. Like, that's what I think being a CEO or leader is. By the way, I'm really excited about what's going on in the chat. Adam, thanks for kicking us off, and Lisi and Philip. Like, the context in the chat matters for you, everybody. Please feel free to share.
And Gary, if you're seeing that chat, feel free to respond.
I will. I'm going to follow your lead, but I will. so everybody can definitely throw in their things and I'll intertwine it. But like, I really do think that, listen, this is all contextual. I'm building my businesses evergreen in perpetuity. If I was a publicly traded CEO, I would play it totally different. Now, I wouldn't give up my humanity for it. I would never undress somebody verbally in a meeting because I don't think that builds a good culture. I believe in retention. I believe in continuity. I believe in speed. When you eliminate fear, you go fast.
Right.
The world is slow right now. Our society's slow because they're overthinking every word, because we're divided, we're fear-based. There's a lot going on. If you can feel it, it feels heavy.
Yep.
VaynerMedia's four walls has to feel fast, even with the world feeling heavy outside. That's a challenge, especially when you have an organization with 1,000 people under 25 who have incredibly progressive points of view, have wild levels of entitlement, have incredible altruism. Like, to run a business in this environment at that scale, there's a lot of challenges. And I think that there's a lot to do. And I think it's all grounded actually in things that your grandmother would tell you. I think people have had the business world wrong. I don't think that nice guys finish last. I really don't. I think that's a propaganda that is really unfortunate. I really do. I don't think that if you're kind, you get walked all over. I think.
When do you think you learned that? I mean,
I think I always navigated it and knew it, but I do think over the last 5 years, it went from subconscious to conscious. I think, I'm talking about it now because it's becoming more, I'm like, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah, right. So you think that, again, without, I have not read the book. I'm looking forward to reading the book, but the 12 traits that you're talking about, did you recognize each one in a vacuum kind of thing? Or did you just, like you said, as you started to write the book, start to kind of compartmentalize what you were doing? Or did you always see them as different traits?
No, I think once I went in, I knew that something was brewing. It was COVID. I wanted to write a book. I was starting to get into my feelings. I was very hot on this concept of candor. I realized that candor was my great misstep as an executive over the last 25 years. I'm incredibly candorous on this. I'm very candorous on stage. Gary V is very candorous. Gary Vaynerchuk, you've seen me interact a little bit. Like, I'm looking for the positivity and optimism. I'm not going to be that, and that I demonized candor, which was a mistake and a vulnerability and a shortcoming. So I was hot. I was going through my feelings on getting better at candor, which was amazing.
Oh, interesting.
And I knew that that was foundational to something I was feeling. And then that led into, I struggle with candor, but I'm incredible at accountability. Mm-hmm. Oh, she's terrible at accountability. Wow, she's really good at candor. He's sensational at candor, but wow, just no gratitude whatsoever. And I started kind of putting the thoughts on paper, and then I started verbalizing them, which is how I write my books. And then I said, I'm really pretty darn successful in a weird way, like different. I do it different. Hey, so is that person. So is that person after. And after, excuse me for 1 second, just this fire, I got to take care of it.
Take your time.
No worries. I really apologize. And it just became like, wait a minute, she's got this huge business and she's the nicest. She's doing 400 million a year. Everyone likes her. Oh, that guy I met in Naples, Florida 7 years ago, 85 years old, 500 people showed up to this place that I was at. People that worked with him for 40 years. I sat there and listened for 20 minutes because I was early for my event. People, grandkids talking about their grandfather worked for the guy, built a massive company, sold it to a private equity firm for $1 billion, 85 years old. You would have thought he was a nonprofit, messiah. And I'm like, the world doesn't understand this. They think, and now, and you know this, we're demonizing capitalism, business successful people, they're bad, they're tax avoiders, and just felt like, you know what? I have a big platform. I have a very compelling voice. I know what I'm doing. I believe that kindness is a foundation of long-term business success. I don't know if, oh my God, this is me talking through. Oh my God, have I ever heard that kindness was a strength in business ever in my life? No, I have not. I have never heard that. Sharp elbows, and I just started really getting into a place where, wow, this is actually obvious. I need to talk about this. I tripled my dad's business in 1 year on emotional intelligence, soft skills. Wait, the soft skills are hard skills. And away we go, right?
Yeah.
And, for example, Adam Breer says, rising operational costs impacting the middle market space, health cost inflations are squeezing take-home pay. How are you thinking about the impact of your employees? I'm not impacting their take-home pay.
Right. Was that in the chat?
Mike,
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I just saw. Mike, tell them the fucking truth. Like, how I run my businesses. Yeah. I compromise profit for culture. Yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, yes or no?
Into people. What's
no,
that?
but crazy. Like probably like to the discomfort of you of how much I'm doing it.
Yeah. No. Look, we're not here to get into your personal.
No, but Mike, I am here to do it because I want to be a leader and I know the truth. And I know me saying it's very different than you affirming it or saying it. The answer to Adam's question is I'm not dealing in the framework of the rest of the world.
Right.
Like I'm playing by my own rules.
Right. That's absolutely true. Let me ask you something, because when I was thinking about your book, and we all know right now we're experiencing, and I assume you don't disagree with this, like this thing called the Great Resignation, right?
Yes. And you know what's even going to be scarier? Why I wrote the book. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm so excited about this. You know what's scarier than the Great Resignation? The great never applying in the first place.
Right.
Because that's what's coming next. These kids have options. Why work at a company paying $60K, making it sucky, when you can make $60K in brand deals on TikTok, hanging out with your friends?
Right.
These kids are not entitled and lazy and ideological. They have options called the internet and the blockchain.
Well, that's right. Well, that's what I'm trying to get. Exactly. And I think that your book and your organization are kind of, I wonder if you think that you're providing, either through the book or through the culture in your organization, a company that may sidestep the Great Resignation because of what you're offering and because of the choices that you're making, and that how people are able to thrive there differently. Do you think that's, do you think how do you think that'll play out?
I think everything I'm talking about in this book with the timing of the Great Resignation will make me outrageously historically correct in 20 years and be looked at as somebody who understood what was going on. And the faster that Andrew and Tom and Dimitri and everybody else gets real serious, real fast about understanding how to create proper culture that brings value to employees without creating entitlement that is not practical to be able to run a business, is everything and nothing else. People are too extreme. They think they hear these kind of talk and they say, this is foofy banana stuff that Gary's talking about. This is not running a business. Like, we can't do that. Like, they take an ideology approach of like, I'm not going to conform or fold to this entitlement of these Gen Zers.
Right.
I just have no emotions when it comes to business. See, I'm detached from my own personal opinions. I'm here to build an empire.
Right.
And I just happen to think that building an empire is going to require a level of humanity that the business world has not anticipated or navigated through over the last century.
But so let me ask you that. What's your advice?
Real quick, Oren asks, how hard is it to change culture at an organizational level? It's actually quite easy. The problem is it takes truth. So if the boss, whoever she or he may be, just decides to reinvest their own take home into their culture, it's actually a piece of cake. The problem is everyone's full of shit. They speak to organizations and culture, but they're trying to maximize profit.
Well, but also that's it. Actually, Oren's question actually goes right into what I was going to ask you, which is, so let's say someone reads the book, truly wants to embody the traits and adopt them in their own organization, but they are going to get influence. Number one, they're going to fall back on muscle memory. They're going to,
Yes.
Culture is a very strong force that's going to push you, even a CEO, in a direction.
Yes.
Ultimately, everyone's accountable to someone.
Yes.
What's your advice to someone that really wants to instill change and wants to raise the EQ of their organization?
Fire people in leadership that aren't kind. Take home less profit each year to put into your employees. Thank you. Have a nice day. Like, I just love this because people love talking about the gangster nature of business. I do.
Right.
They don't want to hear the hard parts. Let me ask you a question, Mike. How do you get into much better physical shape? Go. Answer it point by point.
I would eat better.
Yep.
I would exercise more.
Stop. I said physical because there's mental.
I've done it wrong.
You've done it perfect. Those are the two answers. Yet people will spend on plastic surgery, apple vinegar pills. They will do everything but that.
Right.
Companies, if you mean it, because I honestly think that most people that ask the question don't mean it. I think they like to say it because it sounds good.
Right.
They like to paint a picture, a false picture of their organization. I do care. I actually don't think they mean it. It's actually extraordinarily easy.
Yeah, it goes back to the old adage, actions are louder than words.
Do you know what Alan said when he first came in as CFO? He goes, man, that's a lot of overhead in HR. I'm like, it's not enough.
Yeah. But now he sees, right? Now
of course, because and you know this again, and I'm going personal. What happens is, what I always knew was when you do it right, your ability to drive profit, if you want to, is easy when you've got the right things down.
Right.
My ability to massively create margin and profit is right. I got scared with COVID. I decided to create profit. I created more profit in the last 18 months than I've had in the first 11 years combined.
Right.
That's real. I know. So I don't think people understand what's happening here. I think people are having the low-level conversations, the check the box conversations.
Mm-hmm. Well, so again, how do you, let's just say you're not in a position to fire people so easily for various reasons. Is that the only way you can change culture? Is that
of course
the only thing that you can do?
Yep. Yes. If you have human beings that have clout and power and leadership in the organization, and they are not good human beings, they lead with fear. I'll give you my favorite one. The salesman who's the number one salesman, but they're a bad person and they put everybody down because they're not as good, is always creating less money, but the bosses normally don't see it because they are so transactional. They're like, if I fire Carl, well, then we're going to lose 29% of our revenue. What they don't realize is the hidden impact, because Carl's making everybody else 31% less productive.
Mm-hmm.
And back to how I run my business that you know, which is why I'm pushing it, because I want people to understand I'm not bullshitting here. You also have to be ready to have 2022 not be as good without Carl, but 2023 to be better.
Right.
And to your point, if somebody here is a publicly traded CEO and they're being held accountable for 90 days, well, that's harder to do. They might not get through the year of 2022.
Right.
Which is why you can't build culture if your company is being held accountable for every 90 days financially. Let me say that very clear. You are not able to build a good business culture if you are being held accountable to 90-day financial goals. If, to your point, when you said everyone's held accountable, I said he's right. I'm held accountable to my employees. I don't have a board, as you know. I'm not publicly traded. I look myself in this mirror, and that's who I'm accountable to, but not really, because I'm accountable to my employees, which is hence why I have what I have. If everybody here was accountable to their employees and then worried about everything secondarily, their board, their publicly traded stock, their own selfish wants and needs on how much take home they have, well, they would have great culture too, continuity, and they would start the process of being prepared for the great not even applying in the first place that is going to trounce so many businesses over the next 2 decades.
So where are those people going to go? They're not going to apply. What happens to them?
They're going to be solo. They're going to be solo entrepreneurs that make between $50,000 and $500,000 a year, taking advantage of the blockchain and the internet.
But not everyone. I mean, I gotta believe that you even would agree that being an entrepreneur is a skill, and
Yes.
not everyone has that skill. So what happens?
I would also argue that the modern technology ecosystem has created the true ability to make 84,000 a year. 84,000 a year as an entrepreneurial business was not considered realistic 2 decades ago. You didn't set out to build a business that did 84,000 a year.
Right.
What these kids are is they're building personal brand solo entrepreneur machines where making 84,000 a year to them, slinging Dunkin' Donuts for $5,000 a post on TikTok is better than coming to work for David Isaacs or me or you to make 72,000 a year. That's it.
So that's good. Connect the dots for me, because
Please.
Sadly I'm too old for TikTok.
Okay.
In theory, I'm not their demographic, right?
Well, you
Why
are.
should I care about TikTok? My
Because
kids do.
Because it has the attention of a staggering amount of human beings globally from the ages of 13 to 45 at scale. It is probably the most consumed platform over traditional media, over Netflix, over Instagram now in the world. That's why.
So, and what do you think comes next after TikTok? Because obviously
I had no idea that Facebook was coming or Instagram was coming or TikTok was coming. I don't predict. I just observe and move quickly. If you think that I thought I was going to sell $1 million worth of art at Christie's this year, just a year ago, you sure wouldn't have had me pegged on that. NFTs came out. I understood it. I moved quickly. I built one of the most successful projects in the world. I built brand around it. And, you know, in October, I sold $1 million worth of 5 drawings at Christie's.
not so bad.
Not so bad. And not so fuck the $1 million because it's just way cooler to know that curiosity and creativity, conviction, speed, longevity. What gave me the ability to do that? Taking somebody named Andy Craniac, who's been with me for 8 years, and making him the president of VFriends without a skip and a hop and a kick. And we were fully moving quickly because a culture created a continuity that allowed me to operate at speed.
Right.
This is about money, Mike. What I like, again, people are going to hear me through this journey over the next 3-4 years as I pound this message down the throat of the business world. And they're going to hear they're going to hear foofy stuff like warmth and kindness. This is about real business building. Elstrad says, Gary, would you invest on TikTok or do you think it's something temporary? Can you just clarify that? I assume because it's a private company, you mean invest time to build a profile there and an execution. El, can you just give me that clarity? Because the answer is yes. Because what people fear about if it's going to be big in 3 years, nobody, yep, that's what they meant. You know, it's funny, when Seinfeld is the #1 show on TV, no company ever questioned if they should run commercials during it. But with social media sites, they're like, well, what if it's not big in 4 years? I'm like, then we'll move to the next one. But while it's big right now, get your ass in there and extract awareness and customers.
Right. So your approach to social media then is going to be, or your advice to those that are approaching social media is going to be invest in what is big now and be ready to move to whatever comes next.
That's business. You know,
Right.
I'm a firefighter, right? Like I'm ready at all times, always and forever, in perpetuity,
Right.
emotionally, strategically. And that's what's called being great at business.
Mhm.
What gets you somewhere is always the thing that becomes the vulnerability. Most people in this chat are capped because they've romanticized how they got there and aren't willing to change in the face of it.
Mhm. Well, change is hard. It's scary.
Because most people value things in an ideology, meaning, oh, I've made $1 million now. I don't want to lose it.
Right.
Right? They go
Right.
on defense.
Right.
Right. I don't think that's a good idea predicated on my ambition. I'm very empathetic that a lot of people have created a goal, achieved it, and then go into defense. The problem is for me is that leads to anxiety and fear. And
Right.
I don't want that for people. I'd rather them lose their money, but be happy.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, when you're operating from a position of fear, you make bad decisions.
And this is why it lends itself, that's right. This is why it lends itself to like, how are you operating your household, right? Like if you make $500,000 a year, but you're living a $600,000 a year lifestyle, you're in trouble.
Yep.
People get caught in their businesses and their professional career because they buy a house. The great farce of the deposit that you put down on a house has destroyed people. People overextend themselves on their down payment and then are really trapped at their jobs or businesses to just pay for their lifestyle. Right. Everybody should be buying a house below their means. Almost everybody in the last 40 years bought a house above their means.
Right. Yeah. I want to give you a second to see. I'm seeing a bunch of chats.
By the way, you should absolutely read them, my friend. I'm a terrible reader. No. So feel free to, I'm getting the gist of them, but reading is not.
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's kind of hard. They're coming in so fast and furious. But so obviously now we're on the other side of the pandemic, obviously, hopefully. What is your outlook for 2022? Like, where do you, what do you see next? What do you want for yourself for 2022?
I'm going to give it in a second. Fernando Diaz says, do you see opportunities for B2B businesses in social media? In LinkedIn, I think it's the #1 thing, Fernando. LinkedIn is acting like Facebook 2013. If you're not posting 5 posts a day with media behind it on LinkedIn as a B2B company, you're missing the great opportunity of a generation in B2B land. As for me in 2022, more of the same, Mike. You know, I'm a really funny dude. You know, I have this public goal of buying the jets. It's really a convoluted smokescreen. What it really means is I just love my process. My great love is not to buy the jets. My great love is to have the opportunity to try to buy the jets.
Yeah, right.
So what do I want for 2022? Much of the same. Everybody, you know, core 15 people in my life to be healthy. Because I promise you, if God forbid I have a tragedy in that realm, I'm not even gonna run my business, let alone put out business content. That's number one. Number two, you know, at this point, now that the gray hairs have come in, at this point, I don't really have any fear left that I will stay the same. Especially this NFT thing that just happened. That's, you know, that on the back of a great 2021, great budgeting and structured season for 2020 for 2021. I was coming into this year like, okay, let's get VaynerX to the moon, right? And we've had a great year, but the year would have been even better if the NFT thing didn't happen. I'm like ready and focused after 9 months of 15 hours a day getting this ship right. And then the NFT thing happens and I'm like all the way over here in left field.
Right.
The fact that I was willing to do that on curiosity and the way it's played out, because now I have Vayner NFT, a consulting company that's going to be one of the biggest companies in our holding co. I've got myself figured out at this point, which is like, oh, okay, I'm going to be me until the end. And what I am is going to work. And so let's stay healthy. Let's stay happy. Let's not, you know, that statement, let's, you know, that I want everybody to hear this nuance. My lack of accountability and humility create a framework to have no delusion.
Mm-hmm.
Do not confuse confidence and clarity with delusion. You know, I'm at the point now where I understand who I am and what I am, and it's kind of like being LeBron James. Now it's about enjoying it.
Interesting.
You know, like I know who I am. I know what it is. And by the way, what it leads to is this book. This book is garbage economics for me. And
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Means I sold 1 million copies of this, but the money I'm making of it is a waste of time in comparison to doing this for an hour or the other things I do.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah, but it's important. It's an important message.
It's an important for legacy,
Right.
for admiration, for leaving the world in a better place than you came into, like those human things. But this is the conversation that I'm trying to have with everybody, which is, are you seeing this right?
Right.
Everyone's trying to be so efficient, maximize profit.
Right.
And in that, they're losing the vision.
Right. Look, I mean, I think that's kind of what I'm was trying to say before, which is, I think the leaders, the business leaders that are able to think differently about where we are and what the circumstances around us are and how the world has changed are the ones that are going to drive successful businesses going forward. What we did yesterday is not going to take us to where we want to, where we go tomorrow. And I think those leaders that, lead with a high EQ or do things differently will be the ones that are successful going forward. It's not holding on to the past, like you said.
And it's the ones that really understand that it's going to take all of it, like not just the parts that come natural to you.
Right.
For example, the great undermining of VaynerX was my lack of candor. And all of our shortcomings, all of our negative relationships with employees, all of the things that weren't working for me over the last 25 years, I can synthesize down to my inability to have conflict over the mundane. I didn't value the money enough, so I'd keep an employee around for an extra year. I wasn't trying to go for the max efficiency, right? And I thought I was being kind, but what I was doing was I was creating fear, which is the least kind thing in the world, because people didn't know where they stood with me, which would mean you could be surprised fired.
That's real. Yeah. Very interesting.
It was really hard for me to come to terms with that a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Did something happen, or was it just a discovery?
It was just back to this, right? You kind of start. I'm always thinking. I'm never interested. For everybody who's getting the first taste of me here, don't let this passion and conviction confuse you. I'm not delusional. So I'm always thinking. I'm always challenging myself. I don't want to be high on my own supply. Right? I don't care how much success I've had. I think of business like sports. Muhammad Ali lost to Trevor Burbick in the Bahamas. That was actually his last fight, not Larry Holmes, like a lot of people think.
Right.
And Trevor Burbick was a journeyman, even though he was a heavyweight champion, who Mike Tyson ironically beat. I don't think people understand how big of a deal it is to keep checking yourself. I keep checking myself, and through checking myself, I'll give you the exact question. Whether, I don't remember if it was in a shower or on a plane or a walk, but I know it was in a moment of silence. And I said, okay, tough guy, if you're so nice, if you're so awesome, if you're so capable, if you care so little about the money, well, why do you have employees that don't like you that used to work here?
Right.
And I kept poking and prodding because it's, subconscious, right?
Right.
And I got there and I was like, son of a bitch, it's this candor thing. And I kept building on it. And I finally realized, my dad was such a negative deliverer of information, very, very, very confrontational, very negative to his employees and his business partners. And I was naturally not. So between my natural DNA and the fact that I saw that and didn't value it and didn't like it, I think I got very conditioned to get very far away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And since I had to be such an extreme response offset to my dad, I think I overcorrected too far.
Interesting.
And I got there with myself and I started changing my behavior 3 years ago, and it really mattered.
How did people handle when you started changing your behavior? So you wake up one day, you flip a switch, but no one else has flipped that switch
I
yet.
over-communicated that the switch was brewing.
Beforehand, you said this is coming.
Yeah.
This is coming. We're going to be a more candid environment.
And then I created a word called kind candor, right? In the new book, right? It's right here, right? Oh, it's not here. Is it in here? Is this the? No, it was a new cover. Sorry. In the new book, I call it kind candor. So once I rebranded it to myself, things got real interesting.
And then you took that, you introduced that to your organization.
That's right.
Interesting.
Because kind candor, and then not only did I introduce it, I suffocated. Right? Back to like what I'm trying to tell everybody here. Are you going to be about it or are you not going to be about it?
Right.
You can't, I love how companies put their 12 principles on a piece of paper and put it on a poster and then don't live it.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, like that, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I did hear a video where you quoted the dedication in your book, which I love. And so I can either read it, you can read it.
You can read it. Yeah, go ahead.
What's that?
Yeah, you can read it. Go ahead.
All right. This book is dedicated to every entrepreneur, founder, executive, manager, employee, mom, dad, older sibling. Here we go. Courageous enough to become better leaders to those who look up to them. It really is truly inspiring. It's really well put and right on point. And it really goes to what you're talking about, like where do you think these leaders, these people are going to find that courage to do it differently?
My hope is that I can spark, and I mean this, because I have, this, I have millions of young aspiring leaders who really think I'm cool.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make them aspire to be kinder, not to buy a private plane.
Right.
And I'm just one person. And so I'll do my part. I think that the world is going to do it. I think the world's becoming more transparent and suffocating, thus making it harder to hide.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to happen anyway, even if I'm not alive or the 5,000 other people that have decided to take the baton of changing the conversation. Do you have your own, sorry to interrupt, do you have your own role models that you follow that from an EQ my mom
standpoint?
My
really?
mom. Yeah, my mom. I'm the byproduct of my mom and dad, for that matter. My dad actually, even though he delivered it very negatively, was a great beacon and North Star to truth. Where my dad got triggered was when people would embellish or lie or be deceitful. He just had no tolerance for it. And as a guy who grew up as a young kid with a gift of gab, I have a funny feeling that if I didn't luck into my dad, I might have not been as noble.
Right. Interesting. And what traits about your mom? What did she offer?
All the other good stuff. My mom is such a remarkable human being. Her capacity for empathy, sympathy. She also, what she really did was she championed that in me. I'll give you an example. I'll paint you a picture. 1985, Edison, New Jersey. Kids are playing outside like we used to do. 8 kids are running around playing wiffle ball, this, that. The moms are outside, lightning bugs. It's out of out of Leave It to Beaver, right? Kid trips, skids his knee while everyone's playing. Everyone keeps running and playing. I stop, run back, and console the kid. Go home that night, take a bath. My mom spends the next hour before I go to sleep telling me that I'm a golden-hearted boy, that she's so proud of me. What do you think you're going to do?
Right.
What do you think's going to happen in that environment? I naturally had it, but she cultivated it. She put kindness on a pedestal. She put humanity on a pedestal, and she lived it as example. Her positive, to Laura's point, her positive affirmation. This is why I tell a lot of friends who have very attractive kids to not overly positive affirm the looks, because they'll be 30-year-olds who only have value in their looks or the sports. This is parents' biggest mistake, in positively affirming school. School doesn't map to life. You're teaching your kids to take subjective affirmation from an outside machine every 100 days.
Right.
You have to be very careful as a parent around affirmation and very careful as a leader around affirmation. I affirm good behavior, not maximizing profit.
Right.
That's why we have a good culture.
So you feel that you acknowledge people's contributions regularly at work and basically.
Actually, yes and no. It's actually another thing I'm starting to think about. I don't smell the roses. And I think that's trickled down a little bit. And I'm starting to tweak that. I do, but I think I can do more. I would call myself a C. I do it, but I know that I'm an A in a lot of other things and I want to get better at it.
Right. Well, look, I mean, everyone's on a process of self-improvement. I firmly believe that you're always you always have to be looking to
the lack. I'm going to wrap it up with this. The lack of beating yourself up. Everybody else stinks at things too. That's why I called it 12 and a half. This book's not called 13. I speak very candidly and very aggressively around my lack of candor as a massive vulnerability. And maybe the people watching right now, vulnerability is lack of self-awareness or lack of tenacity or lack of, empathy or generally not bringing their kindness to the workplace because they don't think it's important. I think my greatest strength is knowing I mean nothing and aspiring to mean everything. And so, that's where I'm at.
That's great. No, really. I really appreciate the time. This was great, phenomenal. And, I feel fortunate to get to spend an hour with you just like this. Although there's many people listening in on our conversation. It's been a lot of fun. And I really wish you great success on the book. I'm very excited to read it. And look, I'm looking forward to working with you for many years to come.
Thank you, brother.
So many thanks, Gary.
Cheers. Bye, everybody.
And
I put my LinkedIn for a lot of people because I know people like continuing the conversation. I'm a funny guy. I get 10,000 messages a day, but I answer 4 and you never know.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, that's great. To everyone else that's been listening in, on behalf of Citrin Cooperman, many thanks for your time today. I really hope you found the session worthwhile. I hope you had some good laughs and got some things to think about. So happy Veterans Day one more time and have a great rest of your day. Take care.